Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Thursday, March the 12th, and I'm still on vacation. I'm Hugh Hewitt, and I'm in Hawaii. Luckily, I've got Bob Frantz here. Now, Bob Frantz is a special guest host because he's from Ohio, so he can spell Ohio, but he doesn't know anything about the Browns or the Indians or the Cavaliers. He's a Michigan and a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, which makes him a stranger in a strange land. But other than that, and the fact that he wanted to draft Sam Darnold in the Cleveland Browns draft that brought us Baker Mayfield, he's a wonderful human being. He wants to draft a wide receiver this year. We got OBJ and Jarvis. I never understand Bob. But in any event, other than football, he knows his stuff. Bob, I thank you for being there. Take it away, my friend.
Hugh Hewitt, it's a pleasure as always to be here, and it's always great to talk sports with you, except for times like this in which sports are going away and sports are no longer. And I say that a little bit over the top, but we are getting very, very close to that with the announcement last night. Not the one made by President Trump that we are going to be talking about this morning, obviously at great length about the plans to deal with the Wuhan virus, but specifically what we heard right after the president spoke, and that was the fact that the National Basketball Association is no more. All right, that's, again, a little over the top, but they are no longer a functioning league until further notice, the NBA, with the acknowledgement that one NBA player named Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz had contracted the Wuhan coronavirus. I will tell you why I continue to say Wuhan coronavirus in a moment. But one player contracted it. They immediately canceled the game that his team was supposed to be in. And then knowing that he has played games in the last few days against other teams, there is a chance that he may have, before he became symptomatic, have infected other people. And so the NBA took the extraordinary step, the drastic step, but maybe the reasonable step, and this is the difficulty of all of this, of saying the NBA's season is canceled, at least until further notice. Perhaps something will change. But right now, the money line in the NBA's press release last night, the NBA is suspending gameplay following the conclusion of tonight's schedule of games until further notice. The NBA will use this hiatus to determine next steps for moving forward in regard to the coronavirus pandemic. So the NBA jumping right into the panic frenzy, again, maybe with good reason, maybe not. We will discuss. And it calls into question, well, let's follow that up with the national NCAA and their national basketball tournaments, conference tournaments, and the first and early rounds of the NCAA tournaments also announced they will be playing, but in empty arenas. Now, that, of course, may or may not give them a way to deal with the potential spread of this virus, which we'll again get into in much more depth. In the stands, among thousands of fans gathered together and being in close proximity within the 6-foot social circle that has been described as far as social distancing yourself from other people who may be symptomatic or may be carrying a virus but is not symptomatic. But what about, again, if one player on one team at one school of the hundreds and hundreds of NCAA schools that are still playing basketball, if one of them test positive for the Wuhan coronavirus, does anybody think that the NCAA won't follow suit with what the NBA did and say everything is canceled? I can speak for this in the state of Ohio, and I'm focusing on the sports part right now at the top only because Hugh likes to mess with me and present fake news about my sports allegiances whenever we talk with one another. But here in the state of Ohio, colleges, and in other states too, of course, but I can only focus on the ones that are most directly impacting me, which are a lot of family and friends whose students are now coming home from Kent State, from Ohio State, from Baldwin Wallace, from John Carroll, from Ohio University. All these colleges are saying at least through some point in April, depending upon the spring break calendar that they follow, classes in terms of face-to-face contact are going to be suspended. And they want everybody to learn online. The professors are going to present online lectures and so on and so forth. So all of these things, I can speak more specifically to Ohio. And back to the sports part, we're in state championship season. Tomorrow, my son's school's girls basketball team is in the state semifinals. They're going to be playing down in Canton. No, they're in Columbus. Beg pardon. They're in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm wondering if the game is going to go off. Because, again, if one student athlete on one team in an entire state is, comes down and is tested positive for this, I wonder if they're going to say, well, nice season, ladies or gentlemen who are in the regional finals now and they're part of the state tournament. Sorry about all of the hard work that you put in, but there will not be a payoff. There will not be a reward. We are canceling the championships. Again, they're already asking them to play in front of nobody. You wonder what's going to happen. I don't think you wonder. I think they're all going to follow suit. I was talking to Generalissimo before we started the broadcast this early morning, and I thank you so much for joining us here in the ReliefFactor.com studios of AM 1420. That's my home base in Cleveland, Ohio, as Hugh mentioned. I was talking to the General. I don't know if the Major League Baseball season, do you think it's going to start 15 days from now? I believe opening day is March 27th. I know that's when my hometown Cleveland Indians start. They have a home game in late March, March 27th. Probably going to be snow on the ground. Still don't know what baseball is thinking about there, but the point is, could you really think that they're going to start? They're going to bring 40,000 people into, because usually home openers, right? Home openers are almost always sold out in most good baseball towns. And that is no different in Cleveland. When they have the home opener on the 27th, there's going to be 35, 40,000, whatever capacity is now at Progressive Field. You think they're going to bring them in to sit shoulder to shoulder and to pack in lines chest to back on the 27th, just 15 days from now? I don't think so. And that brings us to the word panic that we're going to have to discuss. Has the mainstream media successfully whipped the United States population, its business leaders, its executives, its decision makers, sufficiently into a panic, so much so that everything involving crowds will be canceled, everything involving groups of people in meeting rooms, board meetings, groups of people in restaurants, groups of people in shopping malls, that all of these things will be discouraged to the point where this wonderful, previously thriving American economy is ground to a halt. And upon whom will the blame for that rest? And to that, of course, we point to last night's Oval Office address. What are the left? What are the anti-Trumpers, the Orange Man bad leaders, if you will, thought leaders, maybe thoughtless leaders? What are they going to say about this? This is, of course, the responsibility of Donald Trump. Donald Trump addressed the nation last night from the Oval Office, announced the travel ban from Europe, announced the Small Business Association guaranteed loan program, announced that a number of Americans and small business owners are going to be given an extension on their taxes. They don't have to pay their taxes by April 15th, so they can keep their money juiced into the economy. The president made a lot of very important announcements last night. I think a lot of very prudent steps with respect to the containment of the virus and an attempt to continue to, juice the economy with whatever it may need because of the panic that is going on right now. And the left immediately savaged everything he said. The travel ban from Europe for 30 days is xenophobic. It's anti-immigrant. It's anti-brown people. Apparently all the people in Europe are brown as far as we are hearing. They criticized the president's travel ban. They criticized the small business plan. They criticized the payroll tax holiday that he is recommending. They criticized just about everything they could because the one thing that they have wanted to do, enemies of the president, the Orange Man bad crowd, the one thing that they have wanted to do is find a way to hang this around his neck. They didn't like his performance. And look, if I'm being 100% honest, he did not project the most confidence I think I've ever heard him project when he was on the teleprompter last night. President Trump is a dynamic speaker when he is speaking from the heart and off of the cuff. When he is reading from his prompter, he is a little stilted. He is a little bit gaspy, meaning that he doesn't take breaths. Sometimes he kind of just keeps going and going and going and doesn't project confidence. I get that. But this is not the time for the left to be pointing out the president's faults and flaws. This is a time, if they care about the United States of America and dealing with this coronavirus and keeping the American people healthy, this is a time to pull together with the president, not score political points off of him. And that's why we're going to focus on the Wuhan coronavirus, which I will explain more again coming up. My name is Bob Frantz. It's 16 minutes after the hour. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. A lot of information to get to, and we want to hear from you as well on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
This guy going. Yeah, well, I mean, seriously, what is the commissioner going to do? What's Rob Manfred going to do? As he sees basketball doing what they're doing, sees the NCAA doing what they're doing, is he going to invite 40,000 people into 15 stadiums on the I guess it's 6, not 7. It's not. That is true. Yeah, and you're right, and the balls part of that is, you nailed it. He has no way he'll do that. Yeah, I agree. Oh, Sunday night? Well, I think they'll still have it because Bernie's people will go bat bleep crazy if well, what they do want though is they want Bernie's people to come to Biden. That's why Biden made that little appeal on Tuesday night. We want to thank Bernie and all his supporters. He's trying to pull them in. If they tick them off to the point where he doesn't even get another sit down, got to sit for this one. If he doesn't get a chance to debate him again, the Bernie brothers they'll sit out. Yeah, right. Do you want to do food for the poor coming in here? I don't know what time it does it. I got it. Thank you. Who's they? Oh, I see. The feds are doing what the governors want them to do. You're saying. But then Cuomo yesterday on the Today Show, talking about that New Rochelle situation, said, "I want the president or the federal government to take the handcuffs off of me and just let me do what I do. I can fix this." He essentially said that the government is in his way. He is such a blank. Hot mics can't risk it. 22 minutes after the hour, America. Good morning. Bob Frantz sitting in for Hugh Hewitt in the ReliefFactor.com studios. I am in Cleveland, Ohio, and I want to help people around the world. That's what Hugh's mission has been. As he has told you, we're in the middle of the spring campaign to help get food and clean drinking water to starving kids in Guatemala through our friends at Food for the Poor. And you can help just by going to HughHewitt.com and clicking on the Feed Starving Families banner to make a tax-deductible gift. Your donations will help wonderful caregivers like Sister Berta, whose nutrition center in Guatemala City is supported by Food for the Poor. She cares for abandoned children with special needs, and through an interpreter, we asked her what she prays for at night.
She asks God for you guys, for the poor, because she understands that without the money and the help that Food for the Poor gives this center, it wouldn't be possible. She just needs, she will ask for more and to help more people.
So now it is your turn. Please, right now, go to HughHewitt.com or call this number, 855-359-4673. That's 855-359-HOPE. A $320 gift. It's tax deductible. Did I mention that? Provides a hungry family of 4 with food for an entire year and water for a lifetime. Again, go to HughHewitt.com to help, and thank you so very much for helping Food for the Poor. Look, we care about people in foreign countries. We are all a part of this human experience, and we try everything we can to help Americans. We are America first, but we help and care about people all around the world. I say that as a segue into the Wuhan coronavirus. Now, you have heard time and time again the far left and many Democrats in Congress, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi, condemning Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy for calling this, on Twitter, the Chinese coronavirus or the Wuhan coronavirus, saying that that is racist, that is bigoted, and that also projects xenophobia. Last night, the president called it, mentioned that this was a Chinese-born virus, and immediately he was attacked. Racism, racism. Why are you pointing out that it started in China? Why are you saying Wuhan coronavirus, Kevin McCarthy? Why are you saying Chinese coronavirus? And I'm going to tell you exactly why I have made it my decision on all of my broadcasts, local broadcasts in Cleveland, Ohio, and national broadcasts like this one, to always identify its point of origin. Why? To demonize the people who live there? Absolutely not. But to stop the false demonization of the man who is running this country. Because the fact of the matter is, if we don't continue to point out that this was a Chinese-born virus, perhaps, in some circles they talk about this being a created virus, a bioweapon. I don't know. The Chinese government continues to say they don't know why and how it started and it began its spread. This new novel coronavirus. But the point is, if we don't continue to identify its origin as being Wuhan, China, the left, including members of Congress and the mainstream media, and they are virtually interchangeable, Democratic politicians and mainstream media anchors and reporters and columnists, they would have you believe that the origin of the coronavirus was Mar-a-Lago. And I exaggerate not. They want to pin this, if not the origin of it, the spread of it, on Donald Trump. Now, it is spreading throughout the world. The WHO, the World Health Organization, confirming yesterday that this is a pandemic outbreak. One of the most famous people in the world, Tom Hanks, contracted this virus, he confirmed yesterday, along with his wife, Rita Wilson, in Australia, while down there filming a movie. And they announced that they have the coronavirus. This is all over the world, and it is not Donald Trump's fault, but he is the orange boogeyman to the American left. And he is responsible for not stopping it at the borders, even though his attempt to stop people from carrying it across the borders was criticized as being racist, when he immediately put in the travel restrictions from China when this whole thing began weeks and weeks ago, actually months ago. President Trump was condemned for trying to stop travel from China. So this is not Orange Man Bad's fault. This was born in China, and I will continue to recognize it as such. It's not bigoted, it's geography. 27 minutes after the hour. Bob Frantz in for Hugh Hewitt. Right back after this.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by I Still Believe, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
Oh, hey, thank you, Dwayne, for the Thomas Peters info. Yeah, that should be just fine. I think that's what she sent me like this massive list of Washington Post availability of reporters and columnists and feature interviews kind of a thing. And it was one of like many dozen. And so I just didn't recall what it said. No, we're good, man. Thank you for sending that. Yeah, I saw that. No problem. Yeah. Actually, I only think I recorded with him once. I've had him on before, but right on. Boy, I think everything he said last night was good. I think the plans are sound, but he didn't project confidence. He looked nervous. He calm in a way that doesn't sound like you're out of breath with each sentence because you're a little bit hyperventilating. You're a little bit, and that's how he sounded. And I recognized it. So How long is this segment? Oh, this is a good long segment, right? So we can hit some of this audio. We're gonna hit that. We're gonna play the 331 about the travel restriction. Yeah, I think it already is. Yeah, we're good. You mean nobody's going to insert the word care after the titles of the song? Urgent care? No? Okay. 27 minutes before the top of the hour. Good early morning to you. Thank you for being with us. Bob Frantz in Cleveland, Ohio, the ReliefFactor.com studios, in for Hugh Hewitt today. Privileged to be so. And, yeah, urgent cares are going to be – look, so much to talk about with respect to what happened last night, the president's address. We're going to get to that in a moment. Again, my description of the coronavirus as the Wuhan coronavirus is not based in any way, shape, or form on bigotry or racism or xenophobia or anything else. It is a strict, important fact so that people understand this was not American-made and that the President of the United States was not responsible for its spread around the world. Let's just be real about this. But there are a lot of people who are hell-bent on destroying this man. You know this. I'm not giving you anything new here. They're hell-bent on destroying this man. They have been since he came down the escalator. They have been since he announced his candidacy as a Republican. They have been since he won the nomination and since he won the presidency, and they have been trying to take him down. This is their goal. It has been their goal, and now they have found the tool, the best tool. Impeachment wasn't going to get it done. The Russian hoax, the Russian witch hunt, was not going to get it done. The only way to get it done now is to beat him at the ballot box. How does the American left beat Donald Trump at the ballot box? They have to take away his number one issue upon which he can make his case for re-election, which is the incredibly thriving American economy. Excuse me. No, I do not have the coronavirus. I have a frog in my throat. Grind the economy to a halt. Take away his best. They freaked out last Friday, when the job report came out. 175,000 jobs expected in February turned out to be 275,000. The numbers continue to get better and better and better. The stock market continuing to thrive. Now, here's their golden opportunity. The coronavirus is spreading panic throughout the world, not just in the United States, but throughout the world. The coronavirus is leading to all kinds. There's a price showdown between Saudi Arabia and Russia, which has nothing to do with the United States, but it crashes the oil market, which leads to massive sell-offs. And we have watched this, of course, over the last several days. And here's the golden opportunity. This is what Bill Maher wanted. Remember Bill Maher on Politically Incorrect on HBO about, a year into the Trump presidency, maybe less? On his live television show saying, I want to tank the economy. I want to tank the economy. People said, yeah, but you realize that'll hurt Americans, middle Americans. He said, I don't care. What do you want to do? Tank the economy and have people be put out of work, have businesses go under, or lose your quote-unquote democracy? That's what he said. And guess what? He's got a lot of willing accomplices saying, yes, let's tank the economy. This is the opportunity. Crush the economy in the United States right now. Put the sports leagues out of business. Take people out of restaurants, out of shopping malls. Take people out of concert venues. Let's stop spending money, watch it crumble, and then blame him in November. This is the game plan. So I want to focus on all of that this morning, and I welcome you. And you heard his speech last night, where if you did not, we're going to share some of it with you right now. 800-520-1234, 800-520-1234. Would very much want to hear from you, your thoughts on what the president said last night. And I want to know, are you going to stop living your life? Not going to a crowded restaurant because I'm within the 6-foot social circle. The social distancing, not going to any other sort of events or just large gatherings that you would plan to go to. I can tell you this: I'm a featured speaker tonight at an event called the Trump Day Dinner. It's a Trump Day Dinner, which is kind of a playoff of Lincoln Day dinners, which are thrown by Republican clubs all over the country at this time of the year. It's the first annual Trump Day Dinner in support of the president and in support of the United States of America. And there's going to be about 250, I think, tickets that were sold in Chesterland, Ohio tonight. And guess what? We are not canceling. We are going to bring 250 people together, gathered around dinner tables, and then in an auditorium, and we are going to talk about what it takes to not fix, but save this country and how to deal with things like this. We're not changing the way we live. Will we wash our hands, use some hand sanitizer? Of course. That's good practice in flu season. Whether it's flu season or it's Wuhan coronavirus season, that's as good, smart hygiene. We'll continue to do that, but we're not going to be forced to self-quarantine inside our own homes. Unless there's a reason, unless we're symptomatic, we got a breathing problem, we got some fever, then it's wise to stay home. But for the rest of the population, we're staying inside. All right. I want to get to, or not staying inside, beg your pardon. I want to get to last night, the President of the United States addressing the nation and announcing some very extraordinary and important steps in trying to contain the spread. Knowing this is a worldwide problem, the President is addressing it from a worldwide viewpoint, not just within our borders. And that's why he described a very, very big policy shift, at least temporarily, with respect to our relationship with with Europe. Cut 13.
My fellow Americans, tonight I want to speak with you about our nation's unprecedented response to the coronavirus outbreak that started in China and is now spreading throughout the world. Today, the World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global pandemic. We have been in frequent contact with our allies, and we are marshaling the full power of the federal government and the private sector to protect the American people. This is the most aggressive and comprehensive effort to confront a foreign virus in modern history. I am confident that by counting and continuing to take these tough measures, we will significantly reduce the threat to our citizens, and we will ultimately and expeditiously defeat this virus. From the beginning of time, nations and people have faced unforeseen challenges, including large-scale and very dangerous health threats. This is the way it always was and always will be. It only matters how you respond, and we are responding with great speed and professionalism. Our team is the best anywhere in the world. At the very start of the outbreak, we instituted sweeping travel restrictions on China and put in place the first federally mandated quarantine in over 50 years. We declared a public health emergency and issued the highest level of travel warning on other countries as the virus spread its horrible infection. And taking early, intense action, we have seen dramatically fewer cases of the virus in the United States than are now present in Europe. The European Union failed to take the same precautions and restrict travel from China and other hotspots. As a result, a large number of new clusters in the United States were seeded by travelers from Europe. After consulting with our top government health professionals, I have decided to take several strong but necessary actions to protect the health and well-being of all Americans. To keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days. The new rules will go into effect Friday at midnight. These restrictions will be adjusted subject to conditions on the ground. There will be exemptions for Americans who have undergone appropriate screenings, and these prohibitions will not only apply to the tremendous amount of trade and cargo, but various other things as we get approval. Anything coming from Europe to the United States is what we are discussing. These restrictions will also not apply to the United Kingdom. At the same time, we are monitoring the situation in China and South Korea, and as their situation improves, we will reevaluate the restrictions and warnings that are currently in place for a possible early opening.
All right, so the president last night making those very important decisions made public. And look, as you listened to it, you probably heard the same thing I did. The president, when he speaks on teleprompter, and in particular in this case, it's clear he's trying to sound calm. It's clear that he's trying to not go over the top. He didn't want to thunder away from the Oval Office. He wanted to project calm. But you could also hear some breathlessness, some almost hyperventilation, a little bit of, take a breath and start the next sentence. He was a little bit nervous, I think, sounding because of the nature of what we are discussing. And the left pounced on it. I'm an enormous President Trump supporter, and I heard a little bit of that. So you can imagine what the haters heard. Focusing on the message itself rather than the quality of the vocal, the vocal quality rather of the message. These are very, very appropriate steps. The travel restrictions, the others that we'll get to as well, as far as the Small Business Administration loans that are being guaranteed, and the tax breaks, et cetera, or the delay in payment of taxes on April 15th so that money can be reinserted into the economy. All of these things are very, very positive for the economy. And that is precisely why the American left this morning and last night was focused on him and how he sounded, and yes, immediately projecting or branding him once again as a racist, as a bigot, as a xenophobe, because he started those remarks last night from the Oval Office by calling it the Chinese virus, that it started in China, he said. He's right. That's just a fact. It needs to be repeated again and again and again because, again, the media's attempt to destroy him by way of destruction of this economy also includes, and it must include, the disinformation campaign or the misinformation campaign. In other words, the fake news. And the fake news is that this started in the United States, or at least if it didn't start here, it was quickly here, and we didn't do enough to stop it. The president did as much as could humanly be done to stop it And that's the frustrating thing part about this. When he did 3 months ago, order the travel restrictions from China to keep people who are infected from bringing that infection to the United States, Chuck Schumer and the rest of the liberal Democrats called that bigoted and racist and anti-immigrant, saying he's overreacting, he can't do that. Then it comes to the United States and it's, hey, Trump, how come you didn't stop it from coming to the United States? It's a pandemic. It's not able to be stopped, no matter how many steps you take. But the president is trying to take the right steps and has been from the beginning. What I would submit to you, and we will talk again, I'll take your phone calls at 800-520-1234. What I would submit to you is that in recent American history, and this even just goes back to the H1N1 virus, that was far more lethal and far more potent, by the way, than the Wuhan coronavirus is. But really going back to the swine flu, the SARS, the Ebola, all these other outbreaks. If there is ever a time for partisan politics to be put aside and say, you know what, let's band together and protect the people, then we'll get back to fighting. But for now, let's protect the people. This is it. And you have seen the response from the left. Join the president? Never. This is our attempt to destroy him and take back power in November. My name is Bob Frantz, in for Hugh Hewitt. Right back after this.
Thank you, Robert. Time to remind people about ReliefFactor.com. If you are in pain and you want out of pain, well, you need to talk to the people that get it done. Pete and Seth Talbot, the father-son owners of ReliefFactor.com. They tell me that sometimes whole families can be helped when one member of the family gets out of pain. For example, finally, a married couple gets to sleep through the night again when one isn't tossing and turning with a terrible back. That's why Pete and Seth created the 3-week quick start, so you can find out if those people are you. For about $1 a day, you can see if you you can get out of pain, and after that, less than the cost of a cup of coffee a week to stay out of pain. The 3-week quick start is like a trial pack, and it can be at your door in about 2 to 3 days. Let's face it, getting older, exercise, even everyday living can create discomfort, pain. You don't order Relief Factor just for yourself. Order it for your wife, your husband, your family, your friends. They miss the old you too. The 3-week quick start at ReliefFactor.com. 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 Come right back for more Bob Frantz here on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Don't forget to sign up for the Hughiverse. All of Hugh's broadcasts on demand, the after show, which in my opinion is worth the price all by itself, Dwayne FM, and all sorts of bonus content. www.hughiverse.com.
The Hewitt Show.
Good morning once again, America. Bob Frantz sitting in for Hugh Hewitt all across the Salem Radio Network, live from the ReliefFactor.com studios here in Cleveland, Ohio. The President of the United States delivered an address that I thought was extremely important this morning, but he wasn't done there. The President is up this morning and is tweeting. Yes, the president this morning speaking of Nancy Pelosi and her opposition to the payroll tax cut 36 minutes ago. Quote, Nancy Pelosi all of a sudden doesn't like the payroll tax cut, but when Obama proposed it, she thought it was a brilliant thing that all of the working families would benefit from. Because if you get a paycheck, you are going to take home more money, end quote, at Kilmeade at Fox and Friends. So apparently he's quoting Brian Kilmeade on that one, and pretty accurate, I would say. Let's talk about this together. 800-520-1234, the number to join us. We'll go to the phones now, and we're going to start with Joanne calling us from Pennsylvania somewhere. What part of Pennsylvania, Joanne?
Paxville.
Welcome to the program. Go right ahead.
Right outside of Scranton. WCR.
Joe Biden territory. That's Biden territory, right?
Yeah, we know him whenever he wants us to vote for him.
What's on your mind, Joanne?
I'm thinking that this is a biowarfare and that China doesn't like us in our president. So therefore, they sent this biochemical into the air, and they don't care about collateral damage to other people and their people too, because they have so many. And therefore, they wanted to bring them down with a recession, because they couldn't bring them down any other way. They'd rather have a Democratic president rather than the president we have, who is beautiful, strong, and patriotic. That's what it is.
Joanne, you know that the enemies of the president, the enemies of our constitutional republic would call you a conspiracy theorist nut. I will not. I will also not join the conspiracy by saying I think this did happen. I will, however, entertain the possibility. For all of the reasons you just said, and thank you for that call. I'm staring at an article this morning from Bill Gertz in the Washington Times, pointing out some very, very easily provable facts. That the headline, Virus Hit Wuhan, has 2 laboratories linked to Chinese biowarfare programs. This is a fact, these labs. Now, does that mean they put these labs into operation and created this thing, this variant of coronavirus, which exists in 7 different forms anyway already, and weaponize it for the purpose of spreading it around the globe, hurting the United States economy, perhaps forcing a change in American leadership, so that they could get somebody back in who would restore the old trade deals in which they took advantage of the United States to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars a year? I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm not going to be irresponsible and say it happened, but I will entertain the question, because there's a lot of evidence that would at least point to that as being a possibility, if not probability. Let's go to Ontario, Canada. Mike, you're on the Hugh Hewitt Show. It's Bob Frantz sitting in. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I believe that, first of all, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to go to work and everything like that. I'm not going to panic. I'm going to take universal precautions, just like any flu season or cold season. My other problem is when they call Trump a racist. Were we racist when we named the West Nile virus or Spanish influenza?
Apparently so. Apparently so. It's just that you didn't have the media there to tell everybody how racist it was, to call it the Spanish flu, to call the Zika virus, to name the now, all of these other things that indeed have been given names relative to where they originated. Apparently those were racist, but we just didn't know it, Mike, because the media wasn't there to tell us.
My other point is that gas prices are going down. I work for a company that's a trucking company, and we get a profit sharing. The more money they make, the more money I make. So if they pay less for gas, they're making more money. Makes me happy. Works for me.
That's a double-edged sword, though, because you're right. We all love the lower gas prices, whether we're just regular old consumers or, like you said, you're a driver and your company needs to spend less money on fuel. I get that, but the other side of that double-edged sword is oil companies and oil workers are in serious jeopardy here. The reason why gas prices are down is because the price of oil is tanking. It's down in around the $30 a barrel price, maybe less. I don't even know how far it's going to bottom out. And that means shareholders, you're talking about your profit sharing in your company. Well, those who own shares of the oil companies are taking a bath, and oil workers are going to be out of a job because of that. That's the one thing, like I said, that you have to acknowledge on the other side. So I would like there to be a balance where you make money, your company makes money and saves money, but the oil companies also do well so that those workers don't pay the price. Mark in Houston, Texas. Mark, I've only got 40 seconds, but they're yours. Go ahead.
Bob's good to hear your voice. I just want to say that the issue that Republicans are having is controlling the narrative. And apparently, all this talk about coronavirus has taken Chuck Schumer back to page 4 or page 5 instead of on the front page. We have education issues that are going on. We have, like you were just saying, about the problems with oil and gas and our oil workers that are wondering, what's going to happen to that sector of our economy. And I think that's the issue that we have to continue.
You're right, Mark. That is a huge issue, and I thank you so much for the phone call and pointing that out. Thank you very much. Hour number 1 was very fast. We'll come back with hour number 2. Bob Frantz in Cleveland for Hugh Hewitt next.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Thursday, March the 12th, and I'm still on vacation. I'm Hugh Hewitt, and I'm in Hawaii. Luckily, I've got Bob Frantz here. Now, Bob Frantz is a special guest host because he's from Ohio, so he can spell Ohio, but he doesn't know anything about the Browns or the Indians or the Cavaliers. He's a Michigan and a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, which makes him a stranger in a strange land. But other than that, and the fact that he wanted to draft Sam Darnold in the Cleveland Browns draft that brought us Baker Mayfield, he's a wonderful human being. He wants to draft a wide receiver this year. We got OBJ and Jarvis. I never understand Bob. But in any event, other than football, he knows his stuff. Bob, I thank you for being there. Take it away, my friend.
You know, I could say the very same thing. Other than football, Hugh Hewitt knows just about everything. He's about one of the smartest men in media, and yet he still continues to peddle disinformation about football. Thank you so much, Hugh. Seriously, hope you're enjoying your time. We are doing our best to make some sense of what is going on. With the Wuhan coronavirus, the president made an important speech last night. The NBA, National Basketball Association, made an important decision last night. We're going to be talking about all of that as we continue this morning. I am live in the ReliefFactor.com studios of AM 1420 The Answer here in Cleveland, Ohio. As you just heard Hugh say, I welcome your calls at 800-520-1234. I want to pivot, though, away from this for just a few moments here and talk about something else. We're in the middle of a campaign, right? We're in the middle of a primary campaign for the Democrats, looking for a nominee that is looking more and more like it is, of course, going to be Joe Biden. But as it pertains to campaigning, I want to talk about an amazing new novel method of doing that. As more and more rallies and door-to-door canvassing are limited, you know, in my hometown, again, here in Cleveland, 2 nights ago, there was supposed to be a rally, 2 different rallies, one for Sanders and one for Biden in Cleveland, because we vote on the 17th in primaries, and they had to cancel those because of the Wuhan coronavirus. And so people are looking for better ways to communicate with potential voters and beyond, and that's my way of introducing Thomas Peters, who nearly 7 years ago suffered a terrible diving accident that put him in a wheelchair and upended his life. He has taken his time since then to become the CEO of RumbleUp, which is one of the most influential Republican tech companies going, with over 500 clients, including many of the House Republican candidates supported by the NRCC. And he joins us now to talk about his experience and how this could change campaigning really forever. Thomas Peters, thank you so much for joining us on the Hugh Hewitt Show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Pleasure to be with you, Bob.
Good to have you. I'm really amazed at this. We're talking about peer-to-peer texting and your campaign apps that are essentially being developed to help a lot of these Republican candidates have made Democrats jealous, according to Bloomberg News. Tell me what a peer-to-peer texting, or what is the difference between peer-to-peer texting and just what we all know as regular texting?
Yeah, it's probably not the most descriptive name, is it? So peer-to-peer texting means texts that come from a real human being that are sent to a voter one by one, initiating an individual conversation. But our software basically allows this to be a very fast, easy, and scalable process. So one volunteer can be speaking with hundreds or even thousands of folks an hour. That's the innovation.
Okay, and how did you come up with this, and what was the need for this? I mean, has this been what you have always been? I don't know if your accident that you suffered a few years ago that I just read to folks, were you active in this sort of development, app development, prior to your accident, or is this kind of just what you decided to devote your life to since that time?
No, I got to have my midlife crisis at 27. I knew that I wasn't going back to kind of the desk job I had before that involved a lot of travel, but I knew that I could still use a phone. And I saw this big gap in campaign technology. And then actually the way it's developed, a lot of the folks who do texting with our company are themselves military veterans who are disabled in the line of duty, and they still want to participate in democracy. It's just a lot easier for them to do that from home, which I can relate to. But now with coronavirus, and now with a lot of people choosing to stay home or work from home if they're able to, this allows them to still participate in campaigns that need those volunteer activities to do voter contact and get folks to earn their support.
Okay, so Thomas Peters, somebody listening might hear this and say, okay, so one person can reach a whole bunch of people all at once. Don't we already have email for that? There's massive email lists that campaigns have, and don't potential voters already hear from one person at a time by way of email? That would be the question.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. So the problem with email is that it's oversaturated. I'm sure most of us kind of dread looking into our inbox, and there's a lot of spam in there. And the fact of the matter is that only about, even for a really good performing email, you might get a 25% open rate. Over 90% of text messages are opened and read within the first 5 minutes of being received. So it's an unparalleled visible channel. And then it brings someone into really a real-time chat, just if you're chatting with your brother while there's a football game going on. It's that real time, and that's basically how much time and attention people have these days. So that's why texting is more visible, and it gets more conversions more quickly.
So I'm looking at, the descriptor here, RumbleUp, one of the most influential Republican tech companies with over 500 clients, including many of the House Republican candidates supported by the NRCC. So I guess that begs the question, is this a partisan app? Can Democrats use it too?
So it is a partisan app. Political technology is very partisan right now. Democrats have their own peer-to-peer texting platforms. They actually got into this new technology first. The Bernie Sanders campaign did back in 2015. But I have a saying that Democrats invent, Republicans perfect, and Republicans have come a long, long way. And I think 2020 will see us fully caught up with what the Democrats have been doing in the peer-to-peer texting space for several years now.
So I've just mentioned many Republican candidates for the House. Can you give us any names who are using these apps?
So Leader McCarthy, we just helped a handful of Republicans win their primaries in California and Texas, and we've got a couple clients coming up in Ohio. I'm not as close to all the names. I was following a lot closer when we were at 50, but we're actually doing all of the NRCC, all of the congressional incumbents texting this cycle. Which really means just providing the software that their volunteers use to do the texting. And then we work with dozens of state parties, national advocacy groups like the National Rifle Association and Freedom Works, Heritage Action. So it's gotten to be a pretty full house now.
Where do the phone numbers come from, Thomas Peters, CEO of RumbleUp? Do people have to find you or find their candidate and go on and sign up with their phone number for you to get the other end to send these texts to?
That's an excellent question. It's a totally turnkey process for the client to sign up on our website, RumbleUp.com, and for the volunteers to quickly get on board and sending text messages. Where the numbers come from is actually from the Data Trust, which is the Republicans' official voter file, and they've been spending 7 figures in the last 18 months on acquiring high-quality cell phone numbers. Republicans from experience know there's not much point in texting, a hard left Democrat and asking them to vote for a Republican. But there is a lot of utility in texting Republicans messages to see if they can be a potential supporter of your candidate, in addition to the president, as well as reaching out to folks who, if they were to go vote, would support a Republican candidate, but they need that extra nudge, especially in the primary season, when people don't necessarily know that they're primary, like Ohio's primary is next Tuesday. And then special elections as well. And then, of course, it's breaking news. There's all these inflection points where you're looking to engage people because they're probably already following news about coronavirus, the stock market, or about any of the other things that politics impacts. That's when you want to have someone who's a human being reach out to them and say, hey, are you interested? Could you A, B, or C for me?
So the timing of this is really, really good, as we just pointed out, because of the virus and the spread, and people are not going to big gatherings and rallies and these types of things because of fears of contracting this, and even the door-to-door thing. So it's really great to be able to, send these messages to all of these people by way of RumbleUp. Do you think that once this, because it's going to go away eventually, the coronavirus is going to die down, and will this have application? I don't mean that in the terms of this is an app, but will this be applicable as much in future elections, do you think, once people can get right back to their normal gathering points?
We'll see. Every election is different. In 2016, social media was the main influencer, and we did a lot of stuff, the Trump campaign, the Cruz campaign, in social media. But this year, I think, is going to be the year of the political text message, even before coronavirus hits, just because it's the most effective way reach out to people, but I'm not hedging my bets. By 2024, we might have to develop something new. Society changes and adapts, and I'm really glad about that because I think we're going to have to see some serious adaptations happening in response to the coronavirus.
Well, I think it's a fantastic concept that you've come up with here. Again, it's RumbleUp. If you want to look at your app store at RumbleUp and sign up wherever you have to in order to make sure that you can get messages from candidates that are in your area. Thomas Peters is the CEO and the creator of RumbleUp. Thomas, thank you so much. Continued success to you.
Thank you so much, Bob.
You got it. 16 minutes after the hour, Bob Frantz sitting in for Hugh Hewitt. So a new way to campaign, I guess, is the best way to say that. And especially in the light of the virus and the limit of crowds and so on and so forth, maybe that is exactly what is needed. Your phone calls coming up, 800-520-1234. Bob Frantz live in Cleveland, Ohio for Hugh Hewitt here on The Hugh Hewitt Show. 22 minutes past the hour. Good morning, America. Bob Frantz in for Hugh Hewitt, live in the ReliefFactor.com studios of AM 1420 The Answer. It's my home base in Cleveland. My show, for those who do not know, continues after this show, 9 to 11 each and every day. You can listen, if you so choose, at WHKRadio.com. I want to throw my socials out there, too, because I'm sharing a lot of important information on social media, despite my disdain for Twitter and Facebook. You can find me at Frantz Radio. That's all one word. Frantz Radio, all one word, no spaces, no underscores, or anything of that nature. Frantz Radio. I would love to interact with this brilliant Hugh Hewitt audience, even after we're off the air. So, the NBA last night announced the cancellation of the rest of their season. At least they're saying until further notice. The NBA season usually extends to June in terms of the finals. The playoffs are in late April throughout May, and the finals are in June. They are essentially saying all of that is off the table now. If somehow the spread of the Wuhan coronavirus is limited and is contained and is controlled, and it is deemed to be safe to go back, it'll be really interesting to see what they do about all of the missed games and about how they decide championships. But that's very minor compared to the problems of organizations that are already at the ends of their season. The NCAA, National Collegiate Athletic Association championships for women and men. These are about to begin. Conference tournaments, opening rounds of the NCAA tournament. These, of course, are a part of March Madness, which we're in right now. This season usually ends at the beginning of April. They have already decided they're going to play games in empty arenas. This, of course, is subject to change as well the moment one coach or player is diagnosed with coronavirus, the way the NBA did. It was one player, Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz, who contracted the virus that made them cancel the entire season because they don't know who else Rudy Gobert has come into contact with while he was contagious. On his team, opponents in previous days, etc. There's a video, by the by. This is just a bit of a strange part of the story, but there's a video that is making the rounds right now this morning of Rudy Gobert intentionally touching with his hands microphones and the table at a press conference dais for the Jazz shortly before he actually was officially diagnosed. Apparently he was symptomatic and wanted to kind of poke fun at the hysteria by saying, oh, look at this. And he's touching all of the microphones up at the dais that would then be touched by the reporters who go up to retrieve them, after the press conference. Not to mention, if those germs were transmitted to the hard surfaces like the microphones in the table, to anybody who comes to the microphone to speak, they could be impacted. So he was apparently trying to make a joke over the hysteria, but now that he has officially been diagnosed, this looks awful in terms of how it could be spread. And I bring all of that up, too, to talk about this. It's March, and you know what March brings with it? Baseball. We're counting down to opening day. Opening day is supposed to be in April, but they've moved it up to March 26th. At least that's the home opener for the Cleveland Indians.
Are pitchers going to be allowed to put Purell on the ball?
No, I do not think pitchers can put Purell on the ball, because I don't think pitchers are going to be in the ballparks. Nor hitters, nor fielders, nor fans, nor ushers, nor salespeople, the vendors. Nobody. Here's what I'm asking you. Do you think Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, do you think the owners of Major League Baseball teams are going to invite 40,000 fans into each of their 15 home stadiums when this season starts on March 26th, after the NBA just canceled the rest of their season? You think they're going to invite all of those people to come in shoulder to shoulder, chest to back, in this environment? I would very seriously doubt. In fact, if I had money to wager to lose, I would throw a few bucks down on this season will not get underway until May at the very earliest. They will have an abbreviated season, which they have done in the past due to labor stoppages, labor disagreements. They will have an abbreviated season. They will not be playing baseball in March nor in April, and we'll see about May. My friend Peter Kirsanow, a member of the United States Commission on Civil Rights, about the biggest baseball fan I know. He counts down to opening day. He's going to join us next to talk about the coronavirus, the Wuhan coronavirus, and more as we continue. Bob Frantz in for Hugh Hewitt right here on the Salem Radio Network.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by I Still Believe, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
27 minutes before the top of the hour. Good morning, America. Bob Frantz sitting in for the brilliant Hugh Hewitt, who is aloha-ing his way through this Wuhan coronavirus, at least for the time being. Good to be with you, and I want to welcome to the program now a good friend of mine. He's a regular guest on my Cleveland, Ohio program on AM 1420, The Answer, and he will also share a stage with me tonight. We're not scared. We're getting together about 250 strong at a Trump Day dinner tonight in Geauga County, Ohio. Peter Kirsanow. He's an attorney in Cleveland and a member of the United States Commission on Civil Rights. Peter, good morning.
Bob, how you doing? Only 14 days to opening day if they go forward with it, which I'm increasingly skeptical of.
Well, I've got two headlines here, and it's for those who don't know, you regularly count down to most important things in sports. You count down when you come on the number of days until opening day, or until the playoffs, or until the Super Bowl, or whatever the case might be. Well, you've never done the Super Bowl countdown. The Browns have never been close. But here's what I've got in front of me, Pete. In advance of your visit, I took a look-see, and it looks like the San Diego Padres are up in the air as to whether or not they will be starting their season after a state agency in California recommended a ban on large gatherings. So they're considering not having their opening. And then there is another. It is the Twins. Coronavirus puts Twins season opener in Oakland in jeopardy. Okay, same story because it's California. What I guess I'm asking you, Peter Kirsanow, is do you think that Rob Manfred, the owner or the commissioner of Major League Baseball, and the owners will pack 40,000 people into 15 home stadiums on May 26th and 27th when the season begins, right on the heels of the NBA canceling their season and the NCAA saying if we do have the NCAA tournament at all, it'll be in empty arenas?
Yeah, generally, Major League Baseball is the most sober of the major league sports. And I'm not saying it's not sober to cancel games. I think it's eminently reasonable from both an economic perspective because you've got to protect people and you've got to protect your franchises, but also from a common sense perspective. When you see medical professionals saying avoid large gatherings, I'm not a medical professional as opposed to the virologists on MSNBC or CNN. So you follow the folks who follow this kind of stuff, understand vectors and understand the probabilities of things spreading and being contagious. But I think after the examples you've indicated of the NBA, another major league sports entity, saying that they're going to suspend games until further notice. Now, admittedly, the NBA, you've got a closed venue, a closed space, circulating air, kind of like airliners that, kind of scare people. You don't want to be in a confined space like that. Not necessarily that that's going to increase probabilities of infection, but nonetheless, you want to be as prudent as possible. Given the fact that baseball is open air, you would think that there's less of a probability. But I think the example that they set, it's just like any other type of business model. You don't want to be the one who stepped out there, made a mistake, jeopardized individuals. Again, this is something that you want to be sober about and prudent about, so I wouldn't object to it. I think you have to view this in a clear-eyed fashion, but the business aspect of this says they probably do shut it down until further notice.
Yeah, and it's funny you mention airliners. If you've been to a ballpark lately, the seats are like airplane seats. They are so close together. You are literally on top of the person next to you. And what is baseball notorious for as well? The vendor is in the aisle, the guy orders the hot dog, and what happens? That hot dog is passed from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, all the way down. Money is passed back. Give that to the vendor for me. You are intimately on top of strangers and passing whatever is on your hands off to the next person on a regular basis. I cannot imagine baseball will open their season on time, given all of that. And given the fact that all it's going to take is one fan to get sick at a ball game for Major League Baseball to be on the receiving end of a lawsuit for billions saying you didn't take the necessary precautions to avoid this the way other leagues did.
Absolutely right. I think that's going to be the case. And I think you're going to see that spread not just to baseball, but in other large gatherings or even smaller gatherings. You talk to a lot of businesses, as I do, and they have already, most of them, those that at least have counsel, have been advising people with respect to, by people I mean their employees, vendors, etc., as to how to comport themselves. And there's a lot more telecommuting. I bet your listeners have noticed that the highways are not as packed on a rush hour. I think a lot of people have made the decision to telecommute, not necessarily self-quarantine. But nonetheless, there are businesses that are affording their employees the ability to stay at home, telecommute. They've issued instructions as to how they're supposed to behave if they suspect that they may be ill. So we're going to see a little bit more of that. The good news is that we are in mid-March, and it does appear, based on all information, again, I'm not a virologist, and I don't even play one on the radio, but I've listened to a number of professionals, and I've done a little bit of research on this for my own occupation, and that is there are hardly any instances of coronavirus in the southern hemisphere. And in places where it is, even in the northern hemisphere, where it may be still warm and humid, the virus doesn't spread under those circumstances, apparently. So when the summer months come around, there's a very good probability, as with the ordinary flu, that this is going to recede substantially. And again, being sober about it, we have to understand that the instances of this that we see are relatively small in comparison with other outbreaks that we've seen, such as swine flu and SARS. That doesn't mean we diminish or reduce our vigilance on this, but it does mean perspective is in order. And this is the first quote-unquote pandemic or large-scale outbreak that we've had since social media has permeated virtually every aspect of society. And Twitter and the Facebooks and other aspects of social media, I think, have propelled a kind of, I don't want to say hysteria, but I think have
I'll say it.
Raised the urgency level. And also, let's not forget, and this is a very true aspect of it, anybody who watches, if you watch the president's speech, and I don't know if you said this in an earlier part of your segment, Bob, but if you watched the president's speech and then you did as I did, flipped around to some of the other channels, the MSNBCs, what you saw was an appalling display of irresponsibility where they were, to a large extent, focused on the president's performance, not the performance in terms of imparting substance.
Right.
His performance and then
his delivery.
Criticizing him. Exactly. It's truly extraordinary. So there may be those who don't think that the left is doing this and trying to be very magnanimous about it. I'm not one of them. I've got eyes. I can see. I can hear, and it's completely irresponsible, especially when you've got individuals' health, their economic stability at stake. The economy's taking a hit. I think it's going to rebound substantially. I don't think this is going to be anything that's long-term, but it's going to cause a dislocation. And it makes a lot of people nervous. So,
Pete, I want you to dive deeper into that before we talk about immigration in your latest piece for National Review. The economy. By the way, I get what they're saying about last night. The president didn't look comfortable. He doesn't project comfort and strength in those kinds of things. It's not his forte. His forte is speaking off the cuff, not reading off the prompter. It is not his best type of place. But that's irrelevant. The substance is what is relevant. How do you feel his decision making, not really on the travel restriction from Europe, but the Small Business Administration portion, the tax breaks, meaning not going to force every American and every American small business owner to pay their taxes by April 15th so they can keep their capital and inject that into the economy. How do you feel about his steps being taken to try to stabilize what is right now an economy that is on the brink because of all of this hysteria and all of this fear-mongering?
I think a couple of things. One is the individual items of the agenda are less important than the whole. The objective here was, I think, a couple of things: to calm people down, impart information, and make sure America is safe. Without question, what he's done is taken the boldest actions that we've seen any president in our lifetimes take with respect to anything similarly situated. Obama didn't come anywhere close to this, and I don't want to make comparisons, to anybody, but frankly, that's what the left has been doing. They've been, criticizing him. So you have to put things into perspective. And he's taken very bold steps. And let's face it, he got criticized for the very first step that he took, which is probably, by all accounts, I think almost every medical professional agrees, the most important and effective step he could have taken. Yet he got criticized for being xenophobic and racist as a result of that.
Yep.
So I think the whole was good. As far as evaluating the individual components of that whole, to be determined. We have to see. I happen to think that his objective here was to make sure to protect the U.S. and national interest, but also to calm markets and calm fears. We will recover economically. There's going to be a dislocation. We've seen it substantially. Anybody who has got enough bravery to look at the Dow Jones, and it's difficult for me to take a peek every now and then, knows that this is something really significant, but the fundamentals, as a lot of folks have pointed out, the fundamentals are very good. Look, I'm a labor and employment lawyer, and I've told you a number of times, Bob, and everyone who will listen, for 35 years, I have looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports at the beginning of every single month religiously, and I've never seen numbers like this at any time. They are amazing. They're truly eye-popping. That's going to take a hit. The president understands that. He has marshaled resources to try to soften that hit, but we have to do what's necessary to protect the United States of America. I think he's done that by issuing a travel ban on Europe. Very smart in the way he's applied it. The economic remedies, I think, again, to be determined. I don't know that a payroll tax cut is going to do much substantively, but I think the cosmetics of this to assure people are very important. And merely proposing it, I think, is something that helps calm markets and individuals a little bit more. Employers are going to be taking a wait-and-see attitude. I don't think there's going to be any immediate rush to lay off people or anything else like that. So I think we're going to be in decent shape there. And the most important thing, of course, is the health. And I think that the remedies that he has implemented and all the folks that he's got marshaled to the task are going to do a good job.
Peter, I still want to talk about quid pro Joe and immigration. Can you hang with me for a moment?
I sure can.
Peter Kirsanow will give us one more quick segment. He wrote a great piece, which I'll tweet out during this break for National Review. Bob Frantz in for Hugh Hewitt, back right after this.
Thank you, Robert. Time to remind people about Sierra Pacific, andrewandtodd.com, andrewandtodd.com. Their phone number, no matter where you are in the country, is 888-888-1172. No matter where you are in the country, interest rates remain ridiculously low. No matter where you are in the country, from Hawaii, where I'm vacationing, to Alexandria, Virginia, where all those Seattle people are moving because of Amazon headquarters moving to Alexandria, you need to call andrewandtodd.com at 888-888-1172 and say, I need to buy a house, or I need to refinance a house, and especially if you need to consolidate debt. This is about, 10 percentage points cheaper than a credit card. Are you crazy? You should not have credit card debt or car debt or any kind of debt at all. If you've got a house, you got to refinance at these interest rates. Give Andrew and Todd a call today, 888-888-1172. Trust them, as I do, as thousands of you have. 888-888-1172. And trustrelieffactor.com. You may not be able to trust Bob Frantz when it comes to the Browns, but you can trust Relief Factor when it comes to making you feel better every single day. Your back, your neck, whatever bothers you, especially when you're prone in the car. Not prone, I hope you're not prone in the car. Sitting up straight in the car, but wiggling around because your back hurts or your knees hurts or your ankles are barking at you. ReliefFactor.com would have worked overnight to make that easier on you. Icarian Curcumin, Resveratrol, and Omega. 4 natural supplements so carefully orchestrated, so carefully put together to make it just the perfect combination of the natural supplements that make your body breathe a little bit easier, get your health a little bit better, support the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains that plague ordinary living. Don't forget your Relief Factor. Turn around, go back in the house and get it. It's worth the 5 minutes to turn the car around, go back, open up the garage door, go inside and get your ReliefFactor.com. It doesn't work if you don't take it, and you can't take it if you don't get the starter pack. $19.95 at ReliefFactor.com. Back for more of Bob Frantz after this on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show brought to you by Sierra Pacific Mortgage. For more info, call 888-888-1172.
9 minutes before the top of the hour, Bob Frantz in for Hugh Hewitt. Before we continue with Peter Kirsanow, a reminder that we are in the middle of the spring campaign to help get food and clean drinking water to starving kids in Guatemala. Through our friends at Food for the Poor, you can help just by going to HughHewitt.com and clicking on the Feed Starving Families banner to make a tax-deductible gift. Your donations will help wonderful caregivers like Sister Berta, whose nutrition center in Guatemala City is supported by Food for the Poor. She cares for abandoned children with special needs, and through her interpreter, she was asked what she prays for at night.
She asks God for you guys, for the poor, because she understands that without the money and the help that for the Poor gives this center, it wouldn't be possible. She just needs, she will ask for more and to help more people.
She's asking God for your help, and now it's your turn to give it to her. Please, right now, go to HughHewitt.com or call 855-359-4673. That's 855-359-HOPE. A $320 tax-deductible gift provides a hungry family of four food for a year and water for life. Again, go to HughHewitt.com to help, and thank you so very much for helping Food for the Poor. Peter Kirsanow, Cleveland attorney, member of the United States Commission on Civil Rights, wrote an article for National Review about Joe Biden and illegal immigration. That is, I think, very, very important. That's why I invited Peter to come on and talk, even though we've been talking about the virus. Okay, Pete, tell me about Joe Biden and his, if there is a Biden administration, what will happen with illegal immigration in this country?
Yeah, the post was a brief one, but it's one of many installments that I'm going to have on Biden and immigration. I've looked at this pretty closely, and the first installment had to do with the very cost of illegal immigration, which he downplays. Actually, he thinks it's a net benefit to the United States. But the fact of the matter is, everyone remembers the arresting visual that we saw about 9 months ago when they debated in Detroit, and Savannah Guthrie asked everybody to raise their hand if their plan covered illegal immigrants, and everyone, Biden looked to hesitate as if he didn't know if his plan covered it, or if maybe he recognized this was a big-time trap. But everybody raised their hands, and right there, everybody remembered that, boy, this could be the election right there. And I happen to think that's going to have a significant impact. Nonetheless, taking a deeper dive into it, Biden has tried to be more conservative than the rest of the Democratic candidates, but has truly failed. If you look at his platform, it is an open borders platform. There's absolutely nothing in there that would restrain immigration. And by extending free health care or government-sponsored health care under his plan to illegal immigrants, extending coverage to illegal immigrants, that's going to be a significant magnet drawing even more people over. But just looking at the numbers, they're truly astonishing. He tries to say in his platform, tries to suggest that the taxes paid by illegal immigrants, in fact, he cites a stat that says that in 2015, the IRS collected approximately $24 billion from 4.4 million workers who didn't have Social Security numbers, many of whom were undocumented immigrants. Mm-hmm. And he kind of lets that stay out there to suggest that the immigrants are actually paying more into public coffers than the services that they draw out. And the Center for Immigration Studies did a fairly comprehensive study based on National Academy of Sciences data that puts the lie to that. And it's pretty specific, and it probably just covers, it's the tip of the iceberg, because they don't talk about the descendants of illegal immigrants, but only the prime illegal immigrants that come across. And without going into a deep dive and disaggregating the data, the things to remember are that the conclusion of the study is that the lifetime fiscal drain of an illegal immigrant on the public fisc is $65,292 a year. That's the cost of services that they use after taking taxes paid, any taxes paid into account. And when you
that's for every 1 million illegal immigrants, right? Just to clarify.
Well, it's 65.3 billion. Mm-hmm. For every million, and if CIS, Center for Immigration Studies, estimates 11.43 million illegal immigrants, I would respectfully suggest that that's been a static number for about 10 years, or even more than that. I would suspect it's a lot larger than that. But just using that number, right, the present value of that is $746.3 billion. That's real money, and that's before taking into consideration ancillary costs related to illegal immigration, such as the crime costs, the incarceration costs, et cetera, et cetera. So for him to suggest that his plan is, he told Jorge Ramos that illegal immigrants are a net benefit. He called them a gift to society. He apologized for the Obama, as he called it, the Biden-Obama administration's deportation policy, suggesting he was going to discontinue that, and also that he would cease construction of the border wall, essentially open borders. He would extend amnesty far beyond where it currently is and extend asylum status from, I think it's the current 18,000 to 125,000 individuals. So it is essentially an open borders policy.
Well, he even promised to stop the deportation of those illegals who have committed felony-like offenses in other countries. He does not want to deport anybody, even the criminal aliens. I don't see the difference. Everybody seems to think, well, we've dodged a bullet here with socialist Bernie. There is not much wiggle room between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, and I think that is provable. Peter Kirsanow, great stuff on NRO.com. Thank you so much. We'll see you tonight. We're not afraid of any coronavirus. We have a Republican event tonight, and I'll see you there. Thank you, Peter Kirsanow. Bob Frantz in for Hugh Hewitt, back right after this.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Thursday, March the 12th, and I'm still on vacation. I'm Hugh Hewitt, and I'm in Hawaii. Luckily, I've got Bob Frantz here. Now, Bob Frantz is a special guest host because he's from Ohio, so he can spell Ohio, but he doesn't know anything about the Browns or the Indians or the Cavaliers. He's a Michigan and a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, which makes him a stranger in a strange land. But other than that, and the fact that he wanted to draft Sam Darnold in the Cleveland Browns draft that brought us Baker Mayfield, he's a wonderful human being. He wants to draft a wide receiver this year. We got OBJ and Jarvis. I never understand Bob. But in any event, other than football, he knows his stuff. Bob, I thank you for being there. Take it away, my friend.
Hugh Hewitt, it is a pleasure, as always, to sit in for you and to speak with this wonderfully intelligent and informed Hugh Hewitt audience. I just wish you would stop misinforming them about my allegiances. You know what you're going to do? You're going to get me Antifa'd. That's what you're going to do. By crazed Brown fans, I'm going to get Antifa'd in my own town. 7 minutes after the hour, thank you so much for joining us, again, from the ReliefFactor.com studios of AM 1420, The Answer, here in Cleveland, Ohio. The President of the United States spoke from the Oval Office last night.
And we can reduce the chance of infection, which we will significantly impede the transmission of the virus. The virus will not have a chance against us. No nation is more prepared or more resilient than the United States. We have the best economy, the most advanced health care, and the most talented doctors, scientists, and researchers anywhere in the world. We are all in this together. We must put politics aside, stop the partisanship, and unify together as one nation and one family. As history has proven time and time again, Americans always rise to the challenge and overcome adversity.
Despite the president's plea for unity and coming together in defense of the health of the American people, the left savaged not only his performance last night in his speech from the Oval Office, but the substance of his remarks. Joining us now to analyze, Tim Murtaugh, Director of Communications for Trump2020. Tim, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
The president last night announced some very, very bold initiatives, including the travel restrictions from limited exceptions from Europe for the next 30 days. He talked about the importance of all members of government, especially of the Congress, coming together to support our economy in addition to the health of the people by passing a payroll tax cut, by encouraging the small and, in fact, guaranteeing the small business loans, by allowing people to be a little bit late paying their taxes without penalty so they can continue to grease the wheels of the economy. These are all very positive steps, and yet almost all of it was rejected by the left in the media and in office last night. Why are they pushing back against the president at a time when we should, and historically, as President Trump said, we should be all coming together?
Well, because their knee-jerk reaction to everything and anything that involves President Trump is to oppose it, ridicule it, and disregard it. And so it's actually really very sad. You know, the president has this very, very broad whole of America approach to combating the coronavirus, and we as a nation are strong. We are strong. Our economy is strong. We are built to withstand this sort of thing, and we are just exactly the sort of nation among nations who is best equipped to handle a situation like we face right now with the coronavirus. And the president last night showed Americans what they want to see, which is their leadership, their government, their elected officials doing everything they can to take steps to protect the citizenry. That's the first priority of the president, is to protect the American people. And that's exactly what he's doing. And Americans want to see that kind of leadership. And from the Democrats, their first instinct is to always play politics with it. We saw somebody, as the president was winding up his remarks last night, the digital director from Joe Biden's campaign tweeted essentially that he believed that the president had done all of this and allowed the coronavirus to take hold in America on purpose to spread a conspiracy theory and inject such caustic and toxic politics at a time when the president was addressing the nation and trying to calm fears. To have the Biden campaign saying Trump did this on purpose. I mean, it's astoundingly reckless. It's irresponsible, and it does nothing. That's not the kind of leadership that America needs. Not.
Tim Murtaugh is our guest, Director of Communications for Trump2020. That's the reason why I continue to call this in every platform I have, my own radio show, sitting in in for Hugh on his radio show, the Wuhan coronavirus or the Chinese coronavirus, because the left would have you think that it is indeed the Mar-a-Lago coronavirus, that Donald Trump is responsible for this. And I think it's incredibly important to identify the reality of the situation, that it is spread all around the world from its central point in China. And yet the president makes that point last night in the opening remarks of his speech, and they call it xenophobia. They call it bigoted and racist, as if he is trying to somehow, ramp up some sort of a hate campaign against the Chinese. The only person being victimized here by identifying the location of this is President Trump.
Well, it's really silly. Last night on CNN, you had Jim Acosta, who really is the chairman of the resistance movement against President Trump, right?
You're right.
He goes on CNN last night and says that for the president to refer to China as its place of origin and referring to it as a foreign virus is xenophobic. And the underlying it's practically saying he's racist for saying where it came from. This is the same Jim Acosta that less than a month ago referred to it as the China virus or the Wuhan virus. So I guess all of a sudden somebody sent Jim a memo that says, hey, by the way, we now need to call this racist if you refer to it from its place of origin. And it's ridiculous. So you know that if the media and the left in general turns to the nomenclature and starts talking about how you refer to the virus as being racist, then you know that they have run out of real criticisms, because the president is actually on the case and doing what needs to be done. The president is protecting this country, and the Democrats and the media, but I repeat myself, forgive me, are doing nothing but resorting to their own tricks. And, they're back to the Trump's a racist again. It's the same old playbook, and it's so predictable. It's disheartening that it's that predictable, but you could write this stuff up in the morning and say, here's how the media, and in particular CNN, is going to cover this, and you'd be right most of the time. That's so right. Sad. So sad.
Tim, I want to play for you something you've probably heard already. It was very shortly into the Trump presidency that noted progressive, liberal, whatever you want to call him, Bill Maher said this.
I feel like the bottom has to fall out at some point. And by the way, I'm hoping for it, because I think one way you get rid of Trump is a crashing economy. Yeah. So please bring on the recession. Yeah. Sorry if that hurts people, but it's either root for a recession or you lose your democracy.
I know he wasn't joking, and I know his supporters who applauded that were not joking, and many others have repeated that. Do you feel, Tim, as though that is exactly what they are making happen right now, using the coronavirus to spread fear and to spread hysteria? Not that it's not serious, it is, but to spread hysteria and to grind this economy to a screeching halt by saying, don't leave your homes, don't go to restaurants, don't go to malls, don't go to concerts, don't go to games, et cetera, to the point where literally we will see a massive contraction.
Well, the good news is they're not going to succeed. The health of the American economy and the strength of it is so broad and so deep, and the fundamentals are so strong that this economy is going to withstand this. And this is a time, the coronavirus, you're right, this is a serious situation, and the president is treating it as a serious situation. But it will pass. America will come through this, and on the other end, we will be just as strong today as we were in the weeks leading up to this. There's no question. But the media and the Democrats, they absolutely are rooting on a recession, and it's not just because of the coronavirus. They were doing this before. They're in a situation, and again, I hate to keep falling back on the word sad, but I don't know a better way to describe it. They're in a situation where bad news for Americans is good news for Democrats. Think about that. This is the situation that they find themselves in. They have to actively root against the best interests of the citizens of this country in order for them to achieve political success on their own side. That is a pathetic position. It's a sad position to be in. And it wasn't just the coronavirus. For a few weeks there, some months ago, we heard about this inverted yield curve that most Americans had never even heard about. And they said, here comes the coming recession. It's because of the inverted yield curve. And then, of course, the yield curve went back to its normal state, and that recession false alarm just went by the boards, and they acted like they never even had predicted that one. And let's not forget that for 2 entire years, the media and the Democrats tried to tell Americans that President Trump was somehow a Russian agent, and that's why he had to be removed from office. We don't hear about that anymore. And then they moved on to Ukraine, and they impeached him over the nonsense phone call. There was nothing wrong with it with the president of Ukraine. They impeached him, and thank goodness that the Senate stepped in and provided some sanity and acquitted the president and said that's a bunch of rubbish, and that's ridiculous.
Tim, I've only got a minute left. Let me squeeze one more question in. Do you think Joe Biden is getting a pass on all of this? He's the presumptive frontrunner for the Democrats, the presumptive nominee based on results of the primaries. Nobody is asking him, what would you do? He just gets to sit there and watch them question the president, is offering nothing in terms of suggestions about how to deal with this in the coronavirus.
Sure, and he's the last one to be able to talk about this because when he was VP in the Obama administration during the Ebola scare, he's the one who said people shouldn't go on subways, people shouldn't fly, people shouldn't travel. The Obama administration had to go out and in public apologize for Joe Biden's remarks and scaring people about that. And then yesterday, you had his campaign saying that the president did all this on purpose. That's not the kind of leadership America needs, and Joe Biden should be held to account.
Tim Murtaugh is the communications director for the president's reelection campaign, Trump2020. Follow him on Twitter at Tim Murtaugh. Tim, thank you so very much. Bob Frantz sitting in for Hugh Hewitt. We'll be back right after this. 22 minutes past the hour. Good morning, America. Bob Frantz in for Hugh once again from the ReliefFactor.com studios here in Cleveland, Ohio. And as Hugh has been telling you, we are in the midst of the spring campaign to help get food and clean drinking water to starving kids in Guatemala through our friends at Food for the Poor. You can help just by going to HughHewitt.com and clicking on the Feed Starving Families banner to make a tax-deductible gift. Your donations will help wonderful caregivers like Sister Berta, whose nutrition center in Guatemala City is supported by Food for the Poor. She cares for abandoned children with special needs. And through an interpreter, we asked her what she prays for at night.
She asks God for you guys, for the poor, because she understands that without the money and the help that Food for the Poor gives this center, it wouldn't be possible. She just needs, she will ask for more and to help more people.
And now it's your turn to help. Right now, please go to HughHewitt.com or call this number. It's 855-359-4673. That's 855-359-HOPE. $320 tax-deductible dollars provides a hungry family of four with food for an entire year and water for life. Again, go to HughHewitt.com to help. Thank you so very much for helping Food for the Poor. So we talked last segment with Tim Murtaugh from the Trump2020 campaign, and he referenced Jim Acosta. I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if everybody likes to flip over to watch fake news on CNN, but if you didn't, I want to share this with you right now as Jim Acosta, on with Chris Cuomo, decided not to focus on the health of the American people, but to call Donald Trump essentially a racist. Cut number 18.
The president referred to the coronavirus as a, quote, foreign virus. That I think was interesting because as I was talking to sources earlier this evening, one of the points that the president wanted to make tonight, wanted to get across to Americans, is that this virus did not start here, but that they're dealing with it. Now, why the president would go as far as to describe it as a foreign virus, that is something we'll also be asking questions about. But it should be pointed out that Stephen Miller, who is an immigration hardliner who advises the president, is one of his top domestic policy advisors and speechwriters, was a driving force in writing the speech. And I think it's going to it's going to come across to a lot of Americans as smacking of xenophobia, to use that kind of term in this speech, Chris.
Well, look, sometimes we can answer the questions, and the answer.
There are no Americans who wondered whether or not that was xenophobic, except for Nancy Pelosi, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and any of the others who just constantly want to refer to Donald Trump as a racist for political purposes, to score political points. There is nothing xenophobic about pointing out the origin of this disease. It was created, or it was originated in Wuhan, China. That is a fact. It spread from China to the rest of the globe despite our best efforts to stop people from coming to the United States from China, which is what the president of the United States brought in. Now, let's think about this for just a moment. The moment the virus was identified as potentially becoming an epidemic, much less a pandemic, Donald Trump said, yeah, well, they're not bringing it here. Let's restrict travel from China to the United States. Why? To protect the people in America. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and the rest of the Democrats in the media, and they are essentially all one and the same, went off on a rant about how this is like the Muslim travel ban. It is bigoted, it is anti-immigrant, it is xenophobic, etc. Just another excuse to keep non-white people out of the country. That's what they said. Then when the virus spread anyway, because guess what? Americans and other non-Chinese are getting it and coming to the United States, etc. It's in the United States, and Donald Trump is blamed for not doing enough, and thus blamed for the spread of the virus. And when they blame him for the spread of the virus, it takes the focus off of the reality that it has nothing to do with the United States. It had everything to do with where it was born. Now, I'm going to talk about this, not next segment, because we're going to talk to Mollie Hemingway, but there is an article in the Washington Times by Bill Gertz that is suggesting that not only is this a Wuhan-born virus, that it may indeed not be an organic disease in this virus season, in this viral season, this influenza season, etc., that maybe it's a bioweapon. It is not something that I am subscribing to, but it is something I will entertain, something I will listen to, something I will read portions of to you. The origin of this virus matters. It didn't happen in D.C. at the White House. It didn't happen at Mar-a-Lago. It happened in China. Recognizing that is not bigotry, it is accuracy, and that's probably why CNN was so confused. 27 minutes after the hour. Bob Frantz in for Hugh Hewitt. Right back with Mollie Hemingway after this.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by I Still Believe, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
You had to go with REM here. You had to choose that one to come back in with. Holy goodness. Yeah, that's what the media would have you believe as they successfully continue to tank the economy in an attempt to score political points against Donald Trump. Welcome. 27 minutes before the top of the hour, Bob Frantz in for Hugh Hewitt once again live in the painfreerelieffactor.com studios of AM 1420, The Answer in Cleveland. Thanks to Tim Murtaugh from the Trump 2020 re-election campaign. Joined now by Mollie Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist. Follow her at MZ Hemingway. Mollie, good to talk to you. How are you?
Great. Good to be here with you.
So the president had so much to say last night in his speech from the Oval Office. The travel restriction, obviously, from Europe, the Small Business Administration, guaranteed loans, the tax relief, the pay for workers who may be unable to work because they are quarantined because of the Wuhan virus. And all everybody can focus on is the fact that he called it a foreign-born virus. The fact that he called it the Chinese virus, and that makes him bigoted and xenophobic. Why are Democrats so resistant to coming together for the benefit of the American people, Mollie Hemingway?
I think there are two reasons they're focusing on that. One, unfortunately, even though we're literally dealing with a global pandemic, people are trying to score political points. And so when you have a really good speech and remarks that address the country, it's a political loss for some people. And so they're focusing on something tangential so that they don't have to deal with coming together or whatnot. The second issue is much more disturbing. I get why communist China does not want people correctly identifying the origin of this virus. They don't want it called the Wuhan virus or the Chinese coronavirus because they don't want people to hold them responsible for how they mismanaged this and how they covered it up and how they went after people who were trying to spread the word about this. I mean, viruses can come from anywhere in the world, including the United States. How you respond to them is very important. China did a horrible job because of their communist system. They want to hide it. They want to cover it up. And they want to, in fact, there's a disinformation campaign going on in China right now to try to claim that the U.S. did this. So I get why China wants to do it. They're an adversary. They're a bad government. What I don't understand is why certain people in the media and certain politicians are doing that Chinese disinformation campaign for them.
Do you really not understand it, or do you just not want to believe it? Because I think you understand it, and so do I. It is Orange Man bad, and by any means necessary, we will get rid of him. I think we all understand it. It's just that it's hard to accept that this is what they'll do.
It's very bad that they're doing it. It's also completely hypocritical. These are people who claim to care about foreign disinformation and how it can affect elections. They spent years hyping, a few $1,000s in Facebook ads from barely literate Russian trolls to try to claim that Hillary Clinton didn't really lose the 2016 election. And yet when you have major disinformation from an actually powerful country like China that we are at odds with, then they just completely do the same thing that they were doing with the Russian disinformation, which is carry it, and help it spread.
You retweeted something this morning, Mollie Hemingway: Hong Kong flu, Asian flu, Russian flu, Berlin flu, Marburg virus, Zika virus, which is from Uganda. Nobody had any problem with identifying these particular epidemics or these particular viral viruses by their location of origin. Suddenly we can't do that. Why? As you point out, this is not exactly an ally of the United States anyway, and nobody is suggesting we want to harm the innocent Chinese people either, but to identify it by its geographical origin is not new. It's not novel.
Right. China doesn't want us to identify it by its origin because of their own disinformation reasons. But epidemiologists constantly identify things by their point of origin because when things start, before you can actually understand how they're spreading fully, you need to identify them so everyone knows what you're talking about. So it's very common. I mean, Lyme disease out of Old Lyme, Connecticut, Ebola from the Ebola River, the Zika virus, Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, the Hong Kong flu, which was the last, a very bad, sort of similar situation.
Sure.
You constantly name things. I mean, sometimes they even get them slightly wrong about where they're naming them, but it's actually quite common. And so for the media to claim that this isn't common or that it makes no sense why you would do it, in fact, this is about as common as it gets when you're talking about pandemics or threats like this.
Mollie Hemingway, to the substance of the speech, are you okay with the travel ban from Europe for 30 days? And do you think it's strict enough? Because he did exempt the UK for reasons that I'm still a little bit sketchy on.
I would be fine with something more strict. I think it's really important. There are twin concerns here. It's very important to take this seriously and to do what it takes to shut it down. The early travel limitations from China did so much to help us, and I don't think that we're getting enough credit for having done that early. This country was wise, and you can see the difference. I mean, we have people coming from all over the world. The fact that we don't have it worse right now is a good thing. More shutting down of borders temporarily would be great. There is this twin concern, though. You need to get people to change their behavior, washing their hands, social distancing, all these types of things, without destroying the economy. And I don't see a lot of people thinking through how to balance those twin concerns. I read a Lancet article yesterday that said people are actually going to take care of their personal health on their own, and you're already seeing that, and you're already seeing companies kind of make their own decisions. Governments need to care a great deal about the economy, which, if that goes into ruin, can cause death and destruction and chaos as well. So I wish we were seeing more people in the United States, whether that's media or politicians, caring about those both sides. I'm actually very glad that the Trump administration at least seems to be caring about both of those issues. You know, public health, major issue; economic ruin, major issue that could cause much longer term, badness than I think a lot of people are realizing.
The sports aspect of this is enormous. Mollie Hemingway is our guest, senior editor at the Federalist. The fact that the NBA has a player that has been diagnosed with coronavirus, they have shut down the rest of the season, at least until further notice, unless something drastically changes. The NCAA is going to suspend March Madness, at least from the standpoint of fans. It's going to be played in empty arenas if they continue that at all. And baseball is supposed to start in about, 12 days, 11 days, something somewhere, maybe 15 days. And I cannot imagine baseball owners inviting 40,000 fans into every stadium to stand and sit upon one another. If you've ever been to a ballpark, you know how close those seats are while this is going on. The extension of not just ticket prices, but merchandise and food, et cetera, the economic impact is going to be drastic. How do we recover from that, Mollie Hemingway?
This is just one thing I want to say, too. A lot of the people who are on TV or making decisions, they are kind of cosseted and insulated from the downturns of the economy. They tend to make more money. They have very secure positions. The people who are most vulnerable, the people in retail positions and otherwise who could lose jobs and their ability to pay their mortgages and things like this, or their rent, these are the people that we also need to be concerned about. So it is important that we take very seriously this very bad virus. It's also true that we should only do things based on the proper course of action. A little bit of overreaction is great, actually, when you're dealing with public health. A lot of overreaction can be a problem. And just by way of example, when you're reading all of these studies, yes, occasionally shutting down schools if you have a truly bad outbreak is a wise course of action. If you don't have an outbreak, it can be a bad way to spread the virus. If you are taking kids who generally don't have fatal reactions to this and putting them in the care of their grandparents who are more susceptible to a fatal reaction to something. So we have to we have to make sure that whatever we're doing, that we're thinking through the unintended consequences as well.
Mollie, it's clear that an economic downturn as a result of this virus would be harmful to the president. He's running for re-election largely on the economy. It's been an extraordinarily successful 3.5 years, and this is his number one re-election campaign issue, I think. And if it crumbles over the course of the next several months, it certainly is bad for him. Now, having said that, I'm going to ask you this. Knowing that the Chinese have to be just completely infuriated with President Trump for cutting into their billions of dollars of advantage that they have had against us in trade over the years. President Trump is reworking all of that. Do you allow for any possibility, and this is not an accusation, it is a question, any possibility that this was intentional, that it was a biowarfare program? We know that there's a story in the Washington Times this morning. There are two labs that are linked to the Chinese biowarfare program. Both are located in Wuhan. Is there any possibility that we should look into this as being something that was done by the Chinese with the intent of harming the world economy and thus their number one enemy, Donald Trump?
Well, there's nothing wrong with looking into anything. That's a reasonable question. But I would say, regardless of whether or not it was intentional, and I don't actually think it was, their response means that we have to think very deeply about how much interaction we want to have with this country, whether we should continue to have such strong economic ties, whether we want to be so reliant on them. I am also thankful that we started making this massive change in our thinking a few years ago from this idea that China was the only country that we could base all of our production in and that we shouldn't care about production in this country. We could see no downside to having everything be reliant on China. I'm glad we have started to make that change. We should further decouple, really, from not just China, but make sure that there's never a situation where one country has such a power over us, in terms of the supply chain, medicine, and otherwise. And so I would hope that this would make people across the aisle care a lot more about reforming our trade policy with them and thinking through whether we need to have better systems here in this country.
Yeah, it really should. And let me ask you this then, and wrapping, Mollie, does the infection of somebody who is as universally loved as Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson, of course, made that announcement last night. They got it down in Australia. They are following all of the proper protocols. By the way, Tom Hanks, I did not know this, is a type 2 diabetic, which would be considered an underlying condition at the age of 63 that may make this a little more dicey for him. What does celebrity outbreak or what does celebrity diagnoses do to the panic of the American people?
Yeah, not just him, but I'd also say the basketball player makes people realize it can happen to anyone, and hopefully makes people care more about it and care about praying for people and everyone who has it.
Very well said. Mollie Hemingway, senior editor at the Federalist. Follow her always at MZ Hemingway on Twitter. Thank you, Mollie, so much. It's 15 minutes before the top of the hour. My name is Bob Frantz. I'm going to talk a little bit more about those bioweapon laboratories in Wuhan, China, as we continue on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Thank you, Robert. Time to remind people about Sierra Pacific, andrewandtodd.com, andrewandtodd.com. Their phone number, no matter where you are in the country, is 888-888-1172. No matter where you are in the country, interest rates remain ridiculously low. No matter where you are in the country, from Hawaii, where I'm vacationing, to Alexandria, Virginia, where all those Seattle people are moving because of Amazon headquarters moving to Alexandria, you need to call andrewandtodd.com at 888-888-1172 and say, I need to buy a house, I need to refinance a house, and especially if you need to consolidate debt. This is about, 10 percentage points cheaper than a credit card. Are you crazy? You should not have credit card debt or car debt or any kind of debt at all. If you've got a house, you got to refinance at these interest rates. Give Andrew and Todd a call today, 888-888-1172. Trust them, as I do, as thousands of you have. 888-888-1172. And TrustReliefFactor.com. Spring and summer right around the corner. You're going to step up your outdoor activities, the stuff you used to do, remember? Those long walks in the early spring days, those hot summer days at the beach or the lake. You get to go out there and swim around and run around. Maybe not, though. Maybe you feel too much pain when you do those things. That's why you want to look into ReliefFactor.com. Pete and Seth Talbot, the father-son owners of Relief Factor, tell me that some of their happiest customers are people who get back what they used to do. Nice long walks, playing tennis, golf, with 100% drug-free ReliefFactor.com, the reason for that. Get rid of that neck or that hip pain, any kind of pain due to aging, exercise, or everyday living. Pete and Seth created the 3-week quick start plan just for you. It's like a magic little 3-week trial set that see if you can get out of your pain and back doing what you want to do. So when you want to get back to the things of your youth, go to ReliefFactor.com. Back for more of Bob Frantz after this on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of The Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by I Still Believe, rated PG. Guidance suggested.
9 minutes before the top of the hour. Thank you so much once again for listening, America. I appreciate you letting me be a part of the morning for you in Hugh Hewitt's seat. Bob Frantz here in Cleveland, Ohio. I'll be back tomorrow as well. Tomorrow, of course, is Friday and the start of the weekend. Perhaps you were thinking about going to the movies. If people are still allowed to go to the movies, I mean, seriously, you're talking about enclosed spaces in theaters. This is what happens when They intentionally fearmonger and attempt to shut down the economy. People stop going to restaurants. They stop going to malls and maybe even theaters. But if you are brave enough, and you should be, do not stop living your life. Go to the movies. I still believe, from the creators of I Can Only Imagine, based on the inspiring story I Still Believe, starring KJ Apa, Britt Robertson, Shania Twain, and Gary Sinise. I love Gary Sinise. It's rated PG. The parental guidance suggested. It's in theaters starting tomorrow. I Still Believe. If you're going to go to the movies, that is the place to be. I want to share this in closing today, only because I'm wondering. I'm not accusing, as I said to Mollie Hemingway. I am not accusing. I am just wondering. Bill Gertz in the Washington Times, a piece I found last night, actually, I'll share with you in part. Virus hit Wuhan, has 2 laboratories linked to Chinese biowarfare programs. Danny Shoham, a former Israeli military intelligence officer who has studied Chinese biowarfare, said the institute in Wuhan is linked to Beijing's covert biological weapons program. He holds a doctorate in medical microbiology. He was a senior analyst with Israeli military intelligence for biological and chemical warfare in the Middle East and worldwide, holding the rank of lieutenant colonel. In other words, he knows his stuff. Now, China in the past has denied having any offensive biological weapons. But the U.S. State Department, in a report just last year, said it suspects China has engaged in covert biological warfare work. Chinese authorities so far have said the origin of the coronavirus that has killed scores and infected hundreds in the central Hubei province is not known. So they're saying, we don't know. We don't know where the virus came from. And that is a little bit concerning, obviously. Zhao Fu, director of Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention, told state-controlled media initial signs as of Thursday indicated the virus originated from wild animals sold at a seafood market in Wuhan. But one ominous sign, according to a U.S. official, is that false rumors since the outbreak began several weeks ago have begun circulating on the Chinese internet, claiming the virus is part of a U.S. conspiracy to spread germ warfare and germ weapons. And that's what Mollie Hemingway was talking about. Their propaganda machine wants the world to believe that the United States is responsible for this. So that would lend credibility to the argument that maybe they created it, got it released, and then wanted to just turn the tables and say, we didn't release it or we didn't do it, the United States did. Why would they want to do that? Because they're losing billions that they used to make in profit in terms of the trade imbalance they had with the United States, all because Donald Trump came into office saying, yeah, that's not going to stand anymore. And indeed, the president has reworked a number of trade deals with the Chinese. Why would they have a vested interest in taking down the United States economy? To get rid of the guy that is costing them billions. That's why. This could indicate, writes Bill Gertz in the Washington Times, that China is preparing propaganda outlets to counter further charges the new virus escaped from one of the Wuhan's civilian or defense research laboratories. So that is another prospect. By the way, it is a possibility that if this did originate in one of the bioweapon labs in Wuhan, China, that maybe it wasn't released intentionally. Maybe it did, quote unquote, escape. It was released into the air in some capacity. Unintentionally, it's possible. But the fact that it may indeed trace back to let's put it this way, the fact that it traces back to Wuhan, where the 2 warfare labs exist, it can potentially be more than coincidental. Coronavirus has been studied in these institutes in Wuhan and are probably held therein, said the Israeli expert. SARS is included within the Chinese bioweapons program at large and is dealt with in several pertinent facilities. It's not known if any of the institute's array of coronaviruses is specifically held in the bioweapons program, but it is possible. So it's just one of these questions as we try to figure out how to deal with it. One of the things you have to figure out is where it came from. In any pandemic or epidemic, that really the world has ever seen. What is the first step for those trying to combat it? Find patient zero. Who was the first who became infected? Where did they go? What were they exposed to? How did it happen? Because that would, of course, be the first step toward finding a treatment. Treatment for those suffering from it and vaccinations for those who are trying to prevent it. Well, if that patient zero happens to be from a lab or happens to have been in the bioweapons or biowarfare labs in Wuhan, China, that would be of extreme importance to note. And also, as we wrap this up, it's extraordinarily important, in my opinion, because the President of the United States is continuing, justifiably so, to remind everybody this is a Chinese virus. This is a Wuhan virus. It is not just unnamed and unspecified geographical location coronavirus. It came from space. No, it came from China. It didn't come from space. And it certainly didn't come from D.C. It certainly didn't come from Mar-a-Lago. It certainly didn't come from Donald Trump, despite what the media wants you to think. All right, that's it. That's all the time that we have. Thanks so much for being a part of the Hugh Hewitt Show today. I'll be back tomorrow as Hugh continues his vacation. Have a safe day. Don't change the way you live. Just practice good hygiene. Practice smart habits. And we'll talk to you tomorrow right here on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.